This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Welcome to episode 401 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host, Stefan Mutzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's 3-1 win in Wolfsburg that keeps the title race narrative alive for Saturday's big clash against, for now, league leaders Bayern Munich. For all that and more, joins me Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, I'm coming from a non-COVID related sickness over the last few days, so I apologize in advance should my sound feed sound a bit stuffy, I guess, but other than that I'm good.
That's good to hear that you are on the mend. Also here with me, and as discussed in the pre-parts, we compared how tired we all are. Matthias Zug, hello.
Hey Stefan, how are you?
Apparently I'm doing still better than you, since you have a leak in the bathroom, the dog with diarrhea, and you went to the dentist today.
Yeah, it's just a great day. But the good thing is, it's the 1st of December, so I was able to open up the first door to my beer Adventkalender. And believe it or not, the beer of the day is Grandler Helles, translated into grumpy German beer. So it fits. Life is trolling me at this point.
No Dortmund lager for you then, I guess. But I mean, that's something. Lars, what was in your advent calendar door, if you have one?
For the first time in my life, at least that I can remember, I don't have an advent calendar, so I can't partake in this thrilling discussion of yours.
Well, that's sad to hear. I personally don't have one, but I made one for my wife, and she got a nice little plate to put all the sweets on that she'll later receive. So yeah, there we go. With that out of the way, I think we can start with the footy talk, and of course we will start with Dortmund's game in Wolfsburg, and obviously, that didn't start off so well as Riedle Baku ripped through Dortmund's left side like Crash Bandicoot through a box of Wumper fruit. And then he crossed it over to Wout Weghorst, who chested it into the net, and it was 1-0 after like 1 or 2 minutes. I think it was Wolfsburg's very first attack, but then Matthias, Dortmund miraculously recovered and did not concede afterwards. So basically a clean sheet for Dortmund if you subtract the first 2 minutes. What do you make out of the reaction that Dortmund showed with Mahmoud Dahoud back in the starting 11, Emre Can in midfield, Witsel on the bench, etc., you name it?
Well, I think it kind of coincides with the general theme we've talked about in terms of just the change in Dortmund's attitude. I feel if we go back 12 months ago, that early goal from Wolfsburg kind of would have been the death nail in Dortmund's coffin for the day, because that's about as bad a start as you can have. And but they didn't drop their heads. They kept fighting. It's a very interesting game because on a lot of the stats, it looked like it was a draw. Almost exact on all stats. But Dortmund have Holland and Emre Can, the ice-cold penalty shooter. So, Dortmund, they were clear ahead in possession by the end. They had way more passes. They had way more progressive passes and carries and goal-creating actions and things like that. So all the stuff that, really helps you win games, Dortmund did just that little bit better than Wolfsburg. You mentioned, obviously, that opening goal where it was... everyone in defense was like, no, I'll take this guy. Oh, what about that guy who actually has the ball? kind of scenario where Dahoud just picked the wrong runner in the end and went inside instead of outside, and that's where the ball actually was. So it was a bit of a farcical start. Wolfsburg played really, really well. Luca Bacchio played really well and gave Dortmund a lot of headaches, as did Maximilian Arnold. But Dortmund seemed to kind of grow into the match overall, felt a little more comfortable after a while. And then, of course, when you could bring on the 11th best player in the world, apparently, according to the Ballon d'Or, as a sub who almost scored with his very first touch and obviously then did score in his first match back, that's kind of an ace up the sleeve that no other team has.
Yeah, yet another booster that Wout Weghorst does not appreciate. But Lars, what are you making of this performance in general, and maybe the first half in particular, with Dortmund eventually winning that penalty, which I think was a Stonewall penalty. By the way, do you think the foul or maybe foul on Dahoud beforehand, like a couple of seconds before where he fell in the box, was something that should have warranted a penalty? I'm sort of unclear on that.
I honestly have no idea what you're referring to.
I think Dahoud was sort of falling over Brooks's legs in that chance where he got another rebound shot off. I don't know if you remember that. If not, don't worry.
No, I don't remember, and obviously I don't think it was a penalty, because I otherwise presumably would remember, even though I watched the game from my sickbed and half of it seemed like a fever dream. Which also kind of applies to the strength of Dortmund's reaction to dropping out of the Champions League in a way, considering it could easily have been, especially after going down after, 90 seconds or so, could have been the start of a typical Dortmund autumnal depression, which turned out not to be the case. I think Wolfsburg gave them an excellent run for their money, as Matthias alluded to. Played a fairly strong, or gave a fairly strong home performance, but Dortmund were just much better on the day. And I think somewhat bizarrely, even before Wolfsburg scored, even though it's only 90 seconds, I think you could see in the first few actions of the game that Dortmund were quite up for it. I think Rose found a good medium of giving those a chance that messed up in Lisbon, but also injecting some new strength, especially obviously Dahoud and Can working really well as a midfield duo against Wolfsburg's midfield. So yeah, I mean, obviously going down after or in the second minute isn't ideal necessarily, but maybe it also gave them a bit of a kick in the behind to stay sharp, because obviously a lot of times after Champions League matches you're actually better in the first few minutes because your intensity levels are still high or whatever, but you can get kind of bogged down in the slog of a game, and that didn't really happen here. I mean, obviously you can argue that it was a bit lucky to get a penalty for the equalizer, which Can expertly put away, but I think you could also argue that Dortmund did enough for the game to warrant that kind of chance falling to them, and then from then on out, I think it was a fairly convincing performance in what I would argue was, for a neutral perspective, or if that's even possible in football, if there are neutral fans, I think it was just a brilliant 90 minutes of football. I mean, end-to-end stuff from time to time, high intensity from both teams. So if I hadn't watched it from a Dortmund perspective, but just, let's watch a game of football, I think I would have been thoroughly entertained.
Yeah, I mean, the game had a lot of momentum swings. That's probably right. I want to give a quick shout out also before we all just gloss over it to Marius Wolf, who also came back from injury, and I thought he had a really good game, not a lot of rust, and did a solid job without doing anything stellar. Although I did appreciate the karate chop on Weghorst, which I think was Dortmund's only booking. But there were a couple of season highs, couple of stats that I wrote down. One of them is shots on target against, which is 7. And obviously when you concede 7 shots on target and only 1 goes in, that means also season high for Kobel, which is tied with this game against Bielefeld, is 6 saves. One note on Kobel is that I really appreciated, especially in the second half, is when Wolfsburg did have, I think, at least 3 shots or 3 saves that he made, is that he cleared it to the side where he neither conceded a corner kick nor was it somewhere in reach of a Wolfsburg player. I feel like this is yet another detail on top that really helps Dortmund out, that the clearance does not go wayward. I mean, one save that he made there, I think then was Royce who had to clear it in front of a defender. But, just wanted to point this out. Obviously, opponents' attempted crosses also a season high with 13. That sort of also speaks to what Wolfsburg's game plan sort of was. And on the ball, though, Dortmund had a season high of switches of play, which I think is a very positive sign, and obviously, helps to have Dahoud back in that regard. And also fewest falls drowned, and Wolfsburg had the fewest interceptions of any team that played against Dortmund with 10. So Dortmund, for what it's worth, over 90 minutes took good care of the ball. And these are just a couple of things, a couple of tidbits to think about, I guess. Another thing to think about, Matthias, I don't know which episode it was, I think 396 or so, when the episode title was, Is Daniel Malen already a flop? And that's exactly where you can spot in the timeline when Daniel Malen started scoring, and now he has scored in 3 consecutive games, and so he did against Wolfsburg in the 53rd minute. It was a really well taken goal. Dortmund obviously do not score that many from outside of the penalty area. So what do you make of this particular strike and the turnaround since we since we were maybe not so nice on Malen?
Well, I think obviously it was a great goal. Wasn't expecting it, and so my enthusiasm was pretty high. I think the success chance of it was like 4%. I mean, it was like a low percentage shot that he made count. I think he's obviously playing better. He's scoring goals. That's the main thing that people want from him. But at the same time, a lot of the criticisms of him are still very valid, in my opinion. He got the goal, but it just, he had 3 shots, I think, total, which was team leading with Marco Reus. But he, didn't really, his pressures was pretty low. So I'm still just waiting to see, to be perfectly honest. He still has a long way to go. But the nice thing is, for a goal scorer, scoring goals is what gives you the confidence going forward. And obviously we saw that with Jadon Sancho last season, where he had the long dry spell to begin with, and then he was unstoppable for the rest of the season. And ideally that happens with Daniel Malen as well, because when they don't score goals, when attacking players don't even provide much of any assists, and then you kind of get in your head, and a lot of people publicly, including your own coach, criticize your mentality and where your head is. Scoring the goals
and
helps
then the
you
Yellowwallpod piles on.
Yes, of course. Stefan. But overall, it's a great sign, obviously, because we need the team needs goals other than Haaland. Now Haaland is back. If both of them are firing, then it could be a pretty good rest of the season.
Yeah. If you talk about his confidence, I think one sign is that he attempted this ridiculous bicycle kick, and I don't think it was too far off. That's a move I think you only do if you are not not have any hesitation in your body, so to speak. So these are little things that encourage me, but at the same time I agree with you. His amount of pressures that he fails to put on opponents is still a little low. Lars, there's another player I want to talk about who is obviously often a subject on this podcast, and that's Julian Brandt, because after, let's say, not playing all too well on the left side together with Scholz for the first 20-25 minutes of the game. I think after that he improved gradually and really had a strong second half, especially when the pressure was mounting from Wolfsburg after the Malen goal.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think you could easily make the case that Brandt has been one of the more consistent performers in this Dortmund side over the last few weeks, which is not usually something you can say about him because of his somewhat streaky nature. I think he definitely benefits from having this run of games where basically everyone around him seems to miss a game here, there, or even more in terms of someone like Gio Reyna, who probably would eat into his minutes. Brandt only had the COVID case early in the season, and he's been basically available for selection every other game, and that continuity helps him find stability in performances. And over the last few weeks, especially the last few games, I would say that he's also found a level which in turn helps Dortmund quite a bit, because we all know how good he can be, and I think he's maybe not even showing all his potential going forward. I think he's definitely not as involved in, shot creating and taking shots himself as he can be. I mean, when we look back at some of the stuff he did at Leverkusen or even in his first year at Dortmund under Favre, there's definitely some area of improvement still there. But in turn, you can also say that he's been more aggressive off the ball or against the ball, as we would say in German. He's getting stuck in. He wins the ball back. He tracks back. He works harder, it seems.
Yeah.
So all in all, I think his development over the last few weeks is definitely encouraging. And as I say, I think the most important thing is just the continuity, and perhaps also knowing that, one maybe disappointing or slightly disappointing spell in a game or a bad half of a game doesn't immediately mean he's out of the team, which maybe would be the case if everyone was available, because obviously then the Konkurrenzkampf in Dortmund's midfield is just too big for someone to slack off for even 45 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen this often now with Brandt, that he takes a while to warm up, but then finishes strong, which sort of speaks to his stamina, I guess, something that we worried about very often here. And also for Brandt, I wrote down some season high sets. They are all obviously his personal season highs, and only in the Bundesliga, but he had the season high in touches with 80 touches in the defensive penalty area, which is 3. So there you go. I think that's in the clearances, also season high in touches in the attacking third with 41, season high with expected assists, which is 0.4, 0.5, goal creating actions, which is 2. So that's very good. Passes attempted, carries, total distance carried, progressive passes received, completed passes into the box, completed crosses into the box, completed live passes that resulted in a shot attempt, number of dribbles tackled, numbers of dribbles tackled, it's important, which is 2, and numbers of dribbles tackled plus dribble pass. Interesting stat there from FBref, but that is also season high with 4, which means he is nearer his opponents than me, when he tackles 2 guys that try to dribble past him and 2 guys that actually make it past him. Usually he's too far away for it to count as a dribble pass Brandt, I guess. And he also led the team in pressures against Wolfsburg, and he had the most blocks. So there you go. Was this Julian Brandt's best performance in the Dortmund shirt? No, far off, but I still thought it was encouraging. And that's about it. I mean, the other thing I think we have to point out really about this game is that Dortmund, between the Malen goal and pretty much the Haaland goal, suffered really and had to take a lot of pressure. And I think Wolfsburg have themselves to blame, especially Luke Bacchio, for not equalizing in that period, because they really did mount a lot of pressure. And Dortmund, I think that they were also lucky. Let's put it this way. I think if a couple of details here and there go the other way, then this result can look entirely different, but I feel like right now this is a bit of what Dortmund have going for themselves, is that they do get the results. And it was obviously an audible roar when Haaland, I think around the 70th minute, came to the bench to get ready for the substitution. And in typical Haaland fashion, then scored the goal where I already started to worry about the hip flexor, but apparently he's fine, he's training well, all that. And we had the fantastic goal celebration where he pointed to some random woman in the stands, or so it seemed with the camera pan, and she then just gave him the bird basically. And that was a very hilarious moment. And I enjoyed that very much. So I think, and after that goal, the spirits were pretty much broken, and Dortmund could have added on. I think Marco Reus had a really good chance to score. And that's sort of that. Matthias, any final thoughts on that Wolfsburg match before we move on?
Well, what's interesting about it, obviously, Dortmund dominated possession with almost 60%. But if you look at pressing statistics, Wolfsburg were the significantly more aggressive team at 181 pressures versus Dortmund 115. So they tried really, really hard. But if you then look at passing and how the passing happened, Dortmund were confident and content to pass through the pressing, which, for the most part, they did very, very well. Whereas then you flip it around to when Wolfsburg were under pressure, they played high balls predominantly to try to get out of it. And obviously you launch balls up, there's less control, and then Dortmund, it's easier for them to regain possession. So I think the advantage for Dortmund and the disadvantage for Wolfsburg also started in just how they chose to build up through and around pressure.
Yeah, that's right. Most high balls against 118 is a season high that I skipped earlier, but I'm glad you pointed it out.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference because those are low percentage balls. And even if you're putting a lot of pressure and stuff like that, when that pressure breaks down and you have nothing to counteract it, and you don't have the ability then to build up constructively, well, then you lose games like this, which, when you start delving deeper into it, that's an issue that Florian Kohfeldt will need to address if he's able to.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the good news is, apart from obviously Dortmund being 1 point behind Bayern Munich, is that they're 6 points of third place Leverkusen, they're 8 points of fourth place Freiburg, and then Hoffenheim, Union Berlin and Wolfsburg are all 10 points away. And then I think 5 more teams, including Leipzig and Gladbach and Frankfurt, Cologne and so on, they are all 12 points away already. Obviously, those leads can be lost over the course of an entire Rückrunde, but I think this is already a healthy cushion, and also in terms of just, thinking about the Champions League qualification, which isn't unimportant. This is a very big win for Dortmund. And obviously it's nice to get yet another win against Wolfsburg. I don't know how many it was on the bounce, maybe 10 or so, or 11. Something absolutely crazy. So Dortmund are Wolfsburg's boogie team, and I'm glad about that. It's nice to be someone's boogie team, to be honest. So with that all being said, Lars, I feel a lot of people are more tuning in to look forward than backward. So I'll leave the stage completely to you to find your way into this match and what your thoughts are going into it.
Well, thank you, Stefan. Can't contain my excitement, obviously. I guess I will just say that for the last few years, the script for, don't call it the Klassiker, has pretty much been the same, meaning games at Dortmund, highly competitive, very good to watch, again, from a neutral or outsider's perspective. Definitely the showcase game for the Bundesliga, with, unfortunately, over the last few attempts, Bayern still coming out on top, even in Dortmund, and the games in Munich have been non-competitive bore fests, basically, in favor of Bayern. So I would once again assume, going into the game, that it's going to be at least entertaining from, again, an outsider's perspective. But even if Bayern aren't at full strength, obviously with Kimmich, for example, still being out due to coronavirus, and I think Goretzka is now a doubt too. I think whenever you face Bayern as Dortmund or one of the other pretenders to the throne, if you like, they raise their game, so I wouldn't expect Bayern to rock up with their Augsburg mentality or their cup at Gladbach mindset. So, even all those think pieces that have been written already and will be written ahead of Saturday evening will say that this is one year where Bayern seem vulnerable and there for the taking. But, I think we all know that that's easier said than done. Whenever Bayern face Dortmund, they seem to find another gear. Perfectly exemplified, I guess, with Robert Lewandowski, who has like 21 goals in 14 matches against Dortmund, which is kind of rude. And now, obviously, the agony of not winning the Ballon d'Or on Monday night will only anger Lewandowski even more. So I'm expecting him to once again make the difference, unfortunately, for Bayern. So even though we're only starting with this segment, I'm already predicting a Bayern win.
All right, Matthias, how are you getting the wind back into the sails here?
Well, so anyway, Stefan, what do you think? No, obviously this is we're going to go through all the marketing bullshit this week around Der Klassiker, as if this is comparable to Real Madrid, Barcelona, when you always kind of have to remind newcomers to the Bundesliga that mid 1990s, there was no rivalry between these two clubs, not even remotely. And then it kind of went dormant for a while, and it came back since Jürgen Klopp came, because Bayern have rivalries with whoever challenges them during a given period over the last 60 years. So that's where this comes from. As far as on the pitch, I think, Bayern were clearly the dominant side against Arminia Bielefeld, but it took a long time for them to get through, and they scored just one. That's all they needed, because Arminia Bielefeld are, let's just say, slightly impotent in front of goal this season.
Speaking of low percentage balls, am I right?
Yeah. Badoom. They have the worst attack in the Bundesliga, believe it or not, actually scoring 2 goals less than 1 point Greuther Fürth. The difference is Greuther Fürth have conceded 20 more. So there's your difference between a 1-point team and a 9-point team. But Stefan Ortega was outstanding for Bielefeld against Bayern. One thing you notice, and I felt it for Dortmund against Wolfsburg, how important Modahut is for Dortmund. You really saw it when he came back, and players like Goretzka.
Yes, long-time listeners, this is Matthias Zug speaking right now.
Yeah, whatever. Hey, like I said, I never hated on him. I wasn't angry, Stefan. I was disappointed. But Goretzka and Kimmich, very, very important for Bayern. But again, you have Lewandowski and you have Manuel Neuer, and those are generational players. So I want, obviously, Dortmund to win. I'm pretty sure Lars wants Dortmund to win, but unfortunately, I kind of probably have to be a little bit less optimistic for this one, just because I need to be proven wrong. We've been hurt so many times, Stefan. And I need to see them beat Bayern. It's kind of like, I'm a lifelong Red Sox fan. Till the Red Sox were able to beat the Yankees in the playoffs, I always believed the Yankees were going to win. And that's what this is. It's gotten to the point where unless Dortmund do it, I believe Bayern's going to win. And that's kind of the way I'm leaning for this one as well. But of course, if you have Guerrero back, reportedly Gio Reyna's back, or he's back in training, supposedly Bellingham's going to at least be available on the bench. Haaland will be available in some form. I mean, those are huge additions. If those players all would not be available for Dortmund, I think Bayern would, even without Kimmich and Goretzka, Bayern would win 3-4-0. I think that's just done. With those players in and Nico Schulz out, I think Dortmund have significantly better chances of winning, but they need to prove it to me. And until then, I just believe Bayern are going to win.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Jude Bellingham because I'm still hopeful that he can play because he's obviously so instrumental for Dortmund and he has a bruised knee. The problem is when Dortmund say a player got a knock, sometimes he's out for 1.5 training sessions. Sometimes he's out for 1.5 years. So you just never quite know what to get. And with Jude Bellingham, I really hope it's the former that he at least can participate maybe in the final team training or something. And, I ideally even start this game. But if he cannot, I think I would retain the Can Dahoud partnership. I'm not sure if I want to see Witsel on that field, to be honest. And the other thing is Akanji was, I think, absent from training yesterday, meaning Tuesday, and there isn't really an update there since. So that's something to stick a pin in. And the other situation is obviously the Haaland situation, because I'll just say my opinion right now is I don't want him to start. Because I think the last time Dortmund played, well, I think that was in Munich, where they sort of competed with them until Haaland had to come off due to load management, and then you had Steffen Tigges there, and since then Dortmund's entire attack died, and I would rather save him for the second half, or I don't know, bring him on in the 30th minute or so. I don't care, but I'd rather have his legs later on in the game than sooner, especially if he has a little bit of freshness. I think he can make way more of a difference against Bayern's defenders than the other way around. That's just my opinion, because I'm pretty certain that Haaland can't go for full 90 minutes. I think it would be asinine to play him for that long, considering what kind of injury he just had and how direly Dortmund missed him. I mean, I think we failed to mention it, but he actually scored his 50th goal in his 50th Bundesliga appearance, and obviously not all of them over 90 minutes. So that's a record for the ages. I don't know when there will be another striker for to break that kind of record, especially at this young age. So that's my opinion. If the chance with Bellingham coming on at some point, if that's the case, then I'm very happy about that too, because I think Dortmund need his energy on the field. Now, the one thing we haven't really mentioned yet, which is very tragic, obviously, and makes me sort of almost tired, is obviously the ramifications of the ongoing pandemic, is that now the attendance, I think, will be capped to 1/3, meaning 27,000 fans at the maximum will be in attendance. And I think Dortmund have sort of refunded every ticket for now, so that's an organizational mess. And I obviously do not know how many fans can actually attend the game. And that's a huge bummer, because this game obviously deserves a full stadium, and I also think that Dortmund play much better with the full stadium. It's obviously not a guarantee to win, but I think it's a massive boost, and that's sort of an advantage to Bayern, if you will, who I think overcame most of their corona worries, if you will. So that's obviously annoying. So Lars, before I talk for Konstantin Eckner sort of minute monologues, what are your ideas about the Dortmund lineup and how best to mitigate Bayern's strengths?
Who's available? I mean, it's tough for us on Wednesday evening to make assumptions what's going to happen in, 3 days? I'm pretty certain Haaland is going to start if he's up for selection from the first minute, because even if you think he can go 60, I mean, game state and adrenaline might stretch that into 70, and 70 can easily turn into 75. I mean, he definitely I didn't expect him to play for, 25 or so minutes at Wolfsburg, especially after his inclusion in the matchday squad was already a surprise. And then Rose said he's going to get a couple of minutes. I actually thought that was kind of Dortmund playing some sort of mind game ahead of the Bayern game, making Bayern think about having to prepare for Haaland. But obviously he was just fitter than they had let on before. So I don't see necessarily much of a reason not to play him for...
I can see how you've been taken by surprise by that.
By what?
By Dortmund having a player that's fitter than they let on. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, whenever someone's breaking a foot, and that's called belastungsstabil, which means, in Socrates' terms, turning a 3-week absence into, I think, half a year, that makes you kind of a skeptic of Dortmund's medical team, as you alluded to earlier. But again, I think if you can play a Haaland for 60 to 70 minutes, that's something you have to take in what is undoubtedly now the biggest game of the year left. Obviously, you don't take the risk of him, being rushed back or anything. But I think we can certainly say that Haaland isn't like anyone else in this squad and has worked tirelessly to make it back for this game in particular, because it's the largest stage now, with Dortmund only playing one more meaningless Champions League game this entire campaign. So I think it's going to be hard for Rose to tell Haaland, we want to bring you on for the final 30 minutes or so. I mean, obviously he's the coach and it's his decision, but I just can't really see it. So I'm kind of expecting Haaland to start, and everything else comes down to availability. I mean, I think I read that Guerrero should be available for selection from the start, which would be a positive, obviously, because they need his creativity. But also, I think I don't necessarily look forward to him playing against Sane or Coman or Gnabry. I mean, who knows whom Bayern will even bring on from the start. I mean, those are all mismatches defensively for Dortmund, regardless of Guerrero or Schulz playing, obviously. But I think Schulz, at least in theory, has the athleticism to deal with some of what they bring. Whereas Guerrero obviously is the much more creative and positive option going forward. Bellingham is a question mark. Don't necessarily expect him to start. I think Moukoko is out for the rest of the year, but after the Super Cup, where I think it was the Super Cup anyway, where he started against Bayern and looked out of his depth, didn't necessarily expect him to start either. So I guess the big question to me is only Guerrero, and everything else is kind of set in stone. But this being Dortmund against Bayern, we have to take into account that sometimes coaches, even very good coaches of Dortmund's past, have kind of outthought themselves going into games against Bayern. I seem to recall Lukas Piszczek playing on the left side of the fence for no reason whatsoever in one of these games, for example.
The term Vertucheln was coined in one of those games.
Yeah, but it wasn't only Tuchel. I think
it was Klopp too.
Favre, and Klopp also fell victim to this idea of having to do something special against Bayern. I mean, doing something special and doing something crazy with your lineup should be two different things. But, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if someone was dropped that we don't expect for Witzel to provide additional cover in theory, because he never really does, but that's another point. So yeah, I mean, I guess we also have to mention that Torgan Hazard should be available again after his COVID time. I mean, I think he was, I think Rose said he could have taken him to Wolfsburg if need be, but they wanted to give him more time off, so I would assume he's been...
That's good to know. Thanks for bringing that up.
I mean, maybe I'm talking out of my ass completely, which wouldn't be the first time, but I think that's the case. I think Hazard should be available for starting 11 selection, which, I mean, for whatever we can say about Marius Wolf's positive development this season, I still think that most would argue Hazard is the more valuable option against Bayern.
Yeah, no, definitely. Having Hazard is a massive boost. And especially that means he can at least bring Wolf on as a substitute later. I think that can be a very decent switch as well. Obviously, not the biggest improvement that you're hoping for, but it's something at least, Otherwise, when your options are sort of Ranier or, I don't know, Witzel or Paslak or, Ansgar Knauf, I still, for right now at least, think that Wolf is the better option. So, obviously, I'm gonna keep a very keen eye on the performance of Marco Reus because I think overall he's played very well this season, and it would not surprise me if he has another really great game against Bayern. So if something happens in Dortmund's favor, I wouldn't be surprised if it's sparked in some way or form by Marco Reus, especially his counter pressing against Bayern, and maybe in heart of Bayern's midfield without Kimmich, and I don't know if Goretzka is going to be out, but if he isn't, I think Goretzka and Tolisso pairing up is maybe not the ideal pairing you want. Sabitzer is also out, so that substitution isn't there either in case Goretzka is out. Something to think of. So maybe there is one weak spot you can potentially attack. I don't know, but as you both guys have already mentioned, Bayern are not really that hampered in terms of personnel, and you would expect that Serge Gnabry or Leroy Sané are daunting of the wings, and Alphonso Davies often manages to break through as well with his pace. So it's obviously always a scary lineup, and you can't expect Bayern to play in the same struggle fashion that they did so against Augsburg or Bielefeld. So there's that. Or I think the worst performance, if you will, was maybe against Gladbach, where they were shellacked 5-0 in the cup. But yeah, I'm not really expecting that either. So Matthias, do you have any final thoughts before we go over to predictions?
Good luck. I mean, what Lars said was right. I mean, doing something crazy with your lineup, doing something special, are two different things. To beat
often
Bayern,
determined by the result.
Yeah, I mean, to beat Bayern, you just need to do really well. I mean, eliminate the silly mistakes, eliminate the silly fouls around your penalty area. You don't have to give them free shots at your goal. Keep those concentration levels up, and whichever players can do that at the most consistent level, those are the players that need to start. Because you look at someone like Arminia Bielefeld, where nobody, that's a team you would look at and go, yeah, they're going to get absolutely thumped by Bayern. And yeah, they lost, but only 1-0. Stefan Ortega had a really good game. Everybody else around him played really well for their level compared to Bayern's level. If Dortmund come out and play to the maximum of their ability and focus and concentrate for the full 90 minutes, obviously Bayern are still going to get chances, then Dortmund can absolutely win this match. But I need to be proven this season that Dortmund can actually do that for 90 minutes, knowing that obviously injuries and all that kind of stuff have played their parts. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, all right. I'll take it. Lars, left field question, but do you by any chance already know, and I don't even know if it's already set, who the referee is going to be? Because I feel like there can be some Bayern bonus tin hatchery during the game, especially from my part. So, if, I really would hope or wish it'd be Manuel Gräfe, but obviously he has retired, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Let me put it this way, Stefan. Whom do you not want?
I don't know, right?
So
now,
tell me your number one choice who you don't want.
Well, I don't know if Felix Zweier can even ref this game, right? Because isn't he from the Bavaria area and can...
No, he's from Berlin. Berlin.
So Felix Zweier is always my number one candidate of referees I don't want. Usually...
Yeah, and guess who?
Fuck. Is it really Zweier?
I mean, I think officially they don't say it this early, but I'm presuming Bild-Zeitung reported already on Tuesday that it's going to be the man, the myth, the menace that is Felix Zweier. So, I mean, the good thing is that both sides of fans immediately went, well, that's the final nail in the coffin. Congrats to either Dortmund or Bayern. So I guess that's the silver lining. But obviously, I mean, a guy that took money for making certain decisions in a game, obviously way back when in his career at the lower level, but still someone like that shouldn't be a referee in general, and definitely shouldn't be rewarded with these big games. So I'm kind of hoping that despite this report coming out early, it's not him.
Yeah, but I don't know. He seems to be getting a lot of big games, and it's very annoying. I really don't like Felix Zweier. I think he comes up with a lot of really weird calls, and just not a good referee. Also on my so-called shit list right now is Dennis Eitekin, who I normally rate though. I just think the whole Dahoud thingy was a little over the top and a bit unnecessary. And maybe those away games in Gladbach are the reason why Bayern right now is still in the lead and, not Dortmund, because Bayern, when they drew 2-2 in Gladbach, they, arguably could have conceded a penalty or two, and maybe the game would have swung the other way. And Dortmund obviously struggling in Gladbach, then we're down to 10 men as well. And they lost the game 1-0, obviously. Also, not a really good performance from Dortmund in that particular match, but still, I'm still salty about it, as you can probably tell. So, I'm gonna come out with a prediction first then. And despite all the naysayers, I'm gonna pick Dortmund to win this 3-2. Lars, you may do the honors and then give your prediction result.
Bayern 4, Dortmund 2, Lewandowski hat-trick.
Okay. Matthias?
I will see your Lewandowski hat-trick. And I agree, probably Lewandowski hat-trick, and Haaland gets 1 goal, and Bayern win 3-1.
All right. The Ballon d'Or runner-up versus the future Ballon d'Or winner, both on the score sheet. Yeah, I hope for once it's an exciting game, but I also take a complete stinker if Dortmund get away with it. Final question to both of you, yes or no, if someone puts a contract in front of you that you sign and Dortmund will definitely draw, will you sign it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with that being said, as always, thank you everyone for listening. You can follow Matthias on Twitter at Matthias Zug. You can follow Lars at Lars Pollmann, and you can follow me at Stefan Butzko. If you want to follow all of us, you can do that at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. You can subscribe to this wonderful podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. And if you want to contribute financially, you can also do that on patreon.com/theyellowwall. And that should be all for this week, and obviously we will be back with the review of the Bayern game, depending on the results. It might be a bit sooner or a bit later, we will see, but at least we have something to discuss. So yeah, once again, thank you everyone out there for listening, and until next time.